coffee.
Move up, Arch. That's it. Okay, good evening everybody, welcome to Prestige Auction Lockdown Special once again. Tonight we're going to be talking about the thing that put Prestige Auctions on the map in quite a big way, which was the Pleasure Island auction. There's not a week goes by when we're out on quotes, any member of the team, where they don't get asked at some point by somebody about what happened at Pleasure Island, what happened to the carousel, all these different things, all these different questions that were always asked. And we always said that one day we would do we would do some sort of chat and a sort of a Q&A regarding what happened down at Pleasure Island and how it all unfolded, how did we get the job, and all the rest of it. So I figured while we're on this lockdown it would sort of make sense to do this. Thing is, when I was sort of researching it in my mind through the week, how could we discuss it, what could we talk about, etc. You know, the thing I fear is it may go over more than one part, it may be a couple of parts. So we'll see where it goes, but I mean, we've been getting questions through Messenger through the week, people asking different questions about different things that happened, and what we're going to try and do tonight, and maybe on the next one as well, is give you an insight into some of the stuff that you don't know about, some of the stuff you didn't see in the media, etc. So it was quite. Lisa's just decided to put it on her phone, and yeah, okay. So listen, what we're going to do, we're just going to go on. If you've got any questions, just hold on to them for a little while, okay? Because what we're going to do is just going to give you an overview of how, pardon me, of how the whole thing happened. Okay, so Prestige Auction set up in July 2017. Yeah, in July 2017, after we decided to go along the auction route, putting it alongside the other Prestige businesses that we had already, and we've been operating quite successfully for a few months. The first few months of Prestige opening, we got extremely busy extremely quickly, and calls started coming in. As you all know that run small businesses, etc., it's difficult to get that call. It doesn't matter how much advertising you do, it's always very difficult to get that call to bring a job into your business. So we did the usual advertising routes. We set up the social media pages and everything, and tried to make the business as busy as we could. Word of mouth is always something that's going to work well in the auction industry. You're pretty much judged on the results that happen. So one day I'm out just doing my normal day-to-day quotes. As anybody that knows that comes down to Prestige Auctions, the day-to-day running of the auction room is pretty much done by Lisa. So Lisa controls that and all the staff, and then I sort of pop my head in on a Saturday and do the auctioneering bit, valuations and all the rest of it. So I walks in one day if I'm doing quotes, and Lisa just happens to shout out to me, "Oh, we've had a call from Pleasure Island." Right, okay, what do they want? Well, they want us to do some sort of auction. Okay, no problem. That is pretty much as far as it went. That's pretty much dismissed it. They was going to ring back, weren't they? That was the thing. They didn't leave a number or anything, they're going to ring back. Okay, so I thought, yeah, well, whatever. They must just try to get rid of some bits and bobs. Anyway, a few days later, sure enough, a guy from Pleasure Island called Tom rang me up and said, look, we want to look at doing an auction down at Pleasure Island, but we need to know if you could do it, etc., etc. What could you do for us? So me and Paul Fenty decided to go down there, have a chat, And that's where it all started. We went down and had a chat, expecting Pleasure Island to say to us, you've got a few bits to sell. Oh, we've got this, that and the other. We knew through the media that they'd already sold the Boomerang and the Alakazam and all the other biggish rides had kind of gone, mainly abroad. So we weren't sure what it was going to entail, but when we started talking, you know, they was just talking about bits and bobs of catering equipment and such like, and we said, well, what about the carousel? What about the dodgems? What about all the stuff around the park, the Tinkerboo factory, and all the rest of it? And they sort of looked at us and said, well, could you do that? Absolutely, yeah. As a small business, you sit there thinking that you can conquer the world. There's no doubt about it, and that you can do anything. We just lost the feed there, sorry. So that we spoke to at Pleasure Island, look, you know, we've got some ideas, let us go away and put a plan together. So we did, we went off, and that's really when the hard work started, right? How are we going to put a plan together? A small business been operating just a few months as a small auction room at the back of Grimsby into pulling off what could be one of the biggest auctions locally. In fact, was certainly the biggest auction locally for many, many, many years. So we put a plan together, and the plan was, which to be fair was pretty much driven by me at the beginning, was let's sell this to the people. I had two sons who grew up loving Pleasure Island. They were excited about the fact that we could be doing Pleasure Island and all the rest of it. Could we actually get the contract? So I said, look, we need to sell this to the people of the town, you know, because the people have grown up, the Pleasure Island opening in the 1990s, most of these kids were sort of in the 20s and that now, working, etc. And they'd all got used to it. Everyone was quite sad when Pleasure Island closed down. So we went back to Pleasure Island, to the management team down there, and said, look, this is our plan. We're going to sell Pleasure Island for you to the general public. And we pretty much got laughed at. It was pretty much, what do you mean you're going to sell it to the general public? I'd done lots of research. There were already had items for sale on various commercial sites for the rides, etc. And we knew the prices because they were there. And they weren't selling them. Certain bits were selling, certain bits weren't. So we said, let's sell it to the people. Let's break the park to bits, into tiny bits all over the place, and sell it to the people. And let's let somebody own a toffee head. Let's let somebody own a Tinkerboo sign. Let somebody own a Boomerang sign, or whatever your favourite bit of the park was. Our plan was to sell everybody a piece of it. And it was met with sort of a mixed response, a sort of, oh, okay, yeah, well, do you think you can do that? Absolutely, yeah, we will turn this into a monster, basically. Okay, if you say so, go away and put a contract together. So we went off, put a contract together, and this took sort of, I don't know, sorry, probably about 4 or 5 weeks, didn't it, Lee? Somewhere around there. About 4 or 5 weeks to put this contract together, where we had to seal it down. And in all this time, we had to keep this so secret, because we didn't want any of the big boys coming in, you know, the big auction houses and that, and the ones that specialise in on-sites and all the rest of it. We didn't want them to come along and sort of steal our thunder. We knew we could pull this off, despite as small as we were. We knew we could do it. So we put a contract together. The details I'm not going to go into about the contract, but we went back and we presented the contract to Pleasure Island, and Pleasure Island were happy with it, signed off there and then, pretty much, and that was it. We had the green light. At that point, we did a lot of social media stuff, saying that we're going to do a big announcement. I think we did it at 4 PM one night, didn't we? And we sort of really given it this big build up, and then we put this big thing on, picture of me and Paul exchanging contracts with the management team at Pleasure Island, saying that we're going to do a massive on-site auction at Pleasure Island in Cleethorpes, and it certainly raised a few eyebrows, you know, in the auction industry in particular. A lot of people are asking the question, how did Prestige Auctions pull off something like this? And then, of course, the whispers started straight away. We started hearing quite a lot of things from other auction houses, both locally and not so locally as well. Well, will they pull it off? Can they pull it off? You know, it's a lot to ask, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing more inspiring than people wanting you to fail. There's no doubt about this. Whatever business you run, whatever sort of thing you operate in your life, if you think to yourself, somebody's going to make fun of you watching you fail, there's nothing better to inspire you and to make it work. So then we put the whole machine together of how can we make this work. So first of all, we had to go down and do inventories. This was in the winter. Pleasure Island had been shut for a couple of years or whatever, 16 months I think it was. It was freezing cold. There was no heating down there. It was the coldest, darkest place. We had trouble with break-ins every night. Break-ins were happening all the time. There were kids all over the park on a night time. The real funny thing about some of the things that anybody that watched the Pleasure Island auctions will know is that signage and stuff like that made so much money. Boomerang signs were making hundreds of pounds and all the rest of it. Yet the vandals were ripping these off on a night time and kicking them around the place. Wrong! You should have took them home, but you didn't. You left them there for us all over the park. We just picked them up, put them into the auction, and they all sold. So we're doing these inventories, and we got it wrong at the start. We decided to go around and do a full park inventory of everything that they would allow us to sell, and look at it and go, well, you know, do we really need an inventory? Because now we're going to have to go around and lot it all up. So we sort of did 2 or 3 days of just 8-10 hour days, freezing cold, writing down inventories, for Lisa to turn around and say, how the hell am I expected to read that? Because it was so cold. My writing was appalling. Paul then started doing some writing.
That was just as bad.
And Paul's writing was better than mine. It was better than mine, definitely. But there you go.
I beg to differ.
Anyway, so we're doing all this, and we're thinking to ourselves, what can we include? So we're continuously speaking to park management. Right, can we include this? Yeah, of course you can. We wanted to have all the catering equipment in. We wanted to go through the whole engineering stores. We wanted to sell anything that we could. We soon put a plan together that we'd do it as a 2-day auction. And then, of course, the question had to become, where are you going to hold this auction? Whereabouts on the park? We decided, whereabouts was it going to happen, full stop, was the first question. We decided it had to be at Pleasure Island. To create the interest around an auction like Pleasure Island, you had to have it at the site. People that weren't vandals and weren't breaking in on a night time would love to have one last look around Pleasure Island before the bulldozers go in or whatever else is going to happen to the site, which is still unclear. So we said we'll have a go at selling absolutely everything, and we was into everything. We went round the back of the Tinkerboo factory. There was lots of alleys and dark underground places and all sorts of stuff, and we was just pulling stuff out. Yeah, we can sell that, we can sell that, we can sell that. So we did all of the industrial side. Day one, we decided it was going to be a 2-day auction. Would hold the auction in the food court. Now the food court, as you all remember, at Pleasure Island was huge. It was a massive, massive room. But everything we pretty much needed was there. All of the chairs, the lightweight aluminium chairs, some of which we bought ourselves and still have them in our auction room to this day. So we had all the chairs there. We lined out 160 or 200 odd chairs in the food court. Paul Fenty came in with some help from Expressions as well to actually build the auction gantry and the stage and the area for media and all the rest of it. And that was how the auction was built and put together. Before that happened, I said we've got to get the media involved. We've got to. This could be quite big for us. It could be quite big for Pleasure Island because they've not been trading for a while. And I just want to point something out just very, very quickly to Robert Waller, who actually sent me a question in this week, saying here, what restrictions do Liquidators put on auctioneers regards reserves, and what do they allow you to sell? I can't. I'll answer that question another time because there was no Liquidators at Pleasure Island, the place hadn't gone bankrupt. The place had just closed. You know, it just seemed that it wasn't economically viable to run anymore, so they just closed it. There was no bankruptcy, nothing like that. So nothing was happening like that at all, and so that made it a lot easier for us, because, you know, we didn't have any pressure put onto us by anybody really, apart from the park management team themselves, who decided on well, we decided to sit down together and look at reserves. But then I had these crazy ideas about getting the media involved. Now, I wanted to speak to different media outlets, so I sat there one day just writing lists down of who might be interested in this story. So we contacted Sky, we contacted the BBC, we contacted Yorkshire, we contacted the BBC One show, we contacted every radio station you can think of, and you know what, the interest was initially quite subdued. It was like, ooh, there's a little bit of interest, and then all of a sudden we got, I think it was it Calendar or Look North first took the story up and said, you know, this, we could run with this, it could be quite interesting. So, and of course they run with it, and literally the first television show that ran with it, then we started getting all the calls from all the other places, different newspapers. The Yorkshire Post, for instance, came down and did interviews, and all the different radio stations, and I can never forget actually Lara King at BBC Radio Humberside. It was absolutely fantastic. You know, really interested, local person herself, really loves the local area and really wanted to, you know, promote this for us. And you know, you can't buy advertising on the BBC, so when Lara got involved, it was really good. But then BBC Yorkshire, I think it was, got involved, and BBC Lincolnshire, and then next thing you know, you get replies from some of the other TV stations, etc., Yorkshire, and then the one that we really wanted to get on board with it was the BBC One show. Now the BBC One show, we contacted a couple of times, we didn't even get a reply. Then we got a reply back from them saying, oh look, somebody's going to ring you. Anyway, this young lady rang us, had a chat with us about, you know, that they'd already run a story on the problems that Pleasure Island were having, and I wasn't aware of this. I'd never seen the piece, and they'd done it with the owner Melanie and park management team. Just before, not long before the park decided to close the doors, so they'd already got a lot of footage from Pleasure Island in their archive already. So they sort of said, well, this could be quite an interesting follow-on to their story from before. So the producers got in touch with me and said what they'd like to do, and they wanted to come down, etc. Thing is, when media get involved with stories like this, we was at this time racing against the clock to try and get an auction put together for Pleasure Island. And every time the media came down, it became the running joke, oh, Carl's off to do his TV stuff again, so leave us all doing the work. So all the other members of the team were working away freezing cold, and you'd spend 2 hours, 3 hours with a media team for what ended up being a 5-minute clip on their television programme. So we was off doing all this stuff, and they were all left working. And so the BBC, the One show that said, look, we're going to run this 5-minute thing on one of the shows, and but we need to come down and get footage. So they started coming down. Of course, the carousel was always involved with filming, etc. So that was quite interesting. But at this point here, we'd decided to actually get some labels printed for lotting up. Now, anybody that understands auction room, you have numbers on everything, and of course these are called lotting numbers. But with Pleasure Island, I had this great idea, because there was a lot of big items, that we would have much bigger stickers. So this big, sort of there to there, there was sort of 4 inches, be 3 inches, something like that, unlike the normal ones that we have that are quite small. And it's quite interesting, because we went round sticking all of these stickers on, lotting the stuff up, you know, and there was about 1,200 lots to do over the 2 days, 600 odd, 650, 660 odd lots a day. So he goes round, puts all these labels on, gets it all written down, and all fantastic. A few days later, I think it was Tom from the park actually rang me and said, you might want to come and have a look at some of your stickers. And because it was so cold down at the park, these stickers were all coming unstuck and rolling up. So it was with quite a lot of thanks at the time to my mother-in-law Lorraine and my father-in-law Dave and Helen London and all the other people that will remember. They actually came down and helped us with these little tab stickers, sticking the stickers back to everything. And we got these high-tack stickers. You know, all the things that you don't think could happen happened. So we're panicking about stickers because we've got to have a lot number on everything. We've got lots of people coming to the park. We've then got into meetings with the park about, you know, about insurances, who's going to public liability insurance, where we're going to restrict people to walking around the park. And we had lots because we knew we knew just from social media what the interest was. You know, every story that was run about Pleasure Island was getting 70 and 80,000 hits on our social media. So we knew that it was going to be there'd be a lot of interest in it. We decided to run the auction 2 days during the week. I believe it was March, was it? Something like that?
It was March and it was a Sunday and a Monday.
It wasn't, it was weekdays.
It was a Sunday and a Monday.
Nah. Alfie, you'll know the auction dates. I'm pretty sure, because I know Alfie's watching in, who runs the Pleasure Island archive. I'm pretty sure that the auction was a Monday and a Tuesday. Lisa's telling me it was a Sunday and a Monday. I don't think it was. However, I think the viewing days was probably over the weekend. But anyway, we'll come back to that. So we decided that we would run the auction 2 days in the week, and but in the meantime we had to make a decision. What would we do with prestige auctions? Well, would prestige auctions keep running? Could we keep prestige auctions running the same week, because we'd have an auction there on the Saturday? So we decided that we could, and Diane, who works for us down at Prestige, said that she could run the place for us in our absence, because all of the rest of the team was going to be taken up down at Pleasure Island, because it was going to be so busy. There was so much to do. So all this was happening, and then things started happening. Like, I mean, this is one that nobody really knows. That the BBC, the One Show, came back to us. They'd already done some filming, and they decided that on the day,
7th and 8th of March 2018.
7th and 8th of March 2018.
Now I'm going to look on here.
So Lisa's going to have a look now, see who was right. I say that they were both weekdays. Viewing might have been on a weekend.
Yeah, you was right. There was a Wednesday and a Thursday.
The Wednesday and the Thursday, but anyway, it's not relevant. Just remember it was 2 weekdays. So we did decide that we would run Prestige Auctions Orwell Street at the same time. So Di and that was making sure that was happening, whilst my son Daniel was kind of running between the two places as well, helping out and checking on the auction room, etc, etc. So there was a lot going on. But then there was a lot at stake for us. But one of the things, like I said before I got taken off on a tangent there, that not many people knew, when the One Show decided what they was going to do, and they was going to come down and film day 2 of the auction. They weren't really interested in the industrial side of the site, but they was more interested in the rides, etc. So they decided that they was going to send the presenter down on that day, and obviously to do a lot of filming, etc. And initially, nobody really knows this, the presenter that was chosen was Kevin Clifton, who was doing Strictly at the time. And Kevin Clifton was originally the first choice to actually come. To the point, I'm pretty sure the producer said to me that they'd actually had a conversation with Kevin Clifton. He was more than happy because it was a local thing for him and all the rest of it, and he was contracted to the BBC or whatever. So, however, he got overturned, and it was Natasha from she does the auction shows and the Antiques Road Trip and what have you on the BBC, because the somebody up high decided that they needed somebody that was involved with the auction business. So Natasha came down, and Natasha was lovely. Lisa was genuinely heartbroken that because she loved Kevin Clifton, and she was genuinely heartbroken when I told her that it was going to be Kevin Clifton, then it wasn't. So there you go. So just a little bit of sorry, I'm just trying to read some of your comments. Yeah, so there you go. So we ended up with Natasha, and Natasha was absolutely lovely. You know, she was fantastic, and that was all for the filming day. So we were building up this massive media frenzy and all the rest of it, and you know, lots of people were getting interested. We decided on a deposit scheme for the bidding, and everybody was really looking forward to the auction. And to be fair, we wasn't totally sure how busy it was going to be until we had a conversation with somebody who said there was. They rang us up and said they was trying to get accommodation in Cleethorpes, and that they was trying all over the place to get accommodation, and they couldn't get accommodation because everywhere there was pretty much ringing up. So there was full with people that was coming to the auction. So we already knew the Premier Inn and all the rest of it had got lots of guests booked in that were coming to the auction that we didn't even know about. We started getting telephone calls from different parts of the world. We had a telephone call from the States and all sorts of things. People are mainly around the carousel, okay, which we'll talk about in time. But everybody was interested in coming to look at different things. When it came to the viewing days was obviously, for an auction room, the viewing days are so important to you because that gives you a measure of how many people are going to turn up to your auction.
Sundays and Mondays.
And it was I think it was the Sunday and the Monday, was it?
Yeah.
We decided to do these 2 viewing days. People came down, and people came from literally all over the country. Fairground people came, people from other leisure parks. But the most important thing to us was that the normal people of Grimsby and Cleethorpes came. The people that had grown up with Pleasure Island, and not just Grimsby and Cleethorpes, but Barnsley and Wakefield and Sheffield and Retford and places like that came to Grimsby, came to Cleethorpes for their days out, or they had fond memories of staying down on the Fitties or at Fort Park or whatever, and they wanted, you know, they remember growing up and going to Pleasure Island every summer holidays. So these people started turning up, and you know, they was all interested in the stuff, and we thought to ourselves, right, okay, you know, this could be okay, we'll be all right. And anyway, let me just see what contract settle cause. How long did it take to settle? I mean, it took weeks to set it up, didn't it? It took.
What, the contracts?
Not the contracts. No, the setup of Pleasure Island itself.
It became our life for about 6 months.
Yeah, because we had so much stuff needed moving around the site to actually get it into the auction areas. We was very conscious that because of a lot of the vandalism and stuff on the sites, there was a lot of areas that were quite dangerous on there.
We was living and breathing Pleasure Island.
Yeah,
6 months.
we did. It was all Pleasure Island. Everything had to work out for this one. But even if it didn't, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But we just wanted to put our name on the map and prove that, you know, we were good enough to do this. So with all the dangers that were on the site, we had to move things. We had fork trucks, etc. on there, moving stuff all over the place, getting stuff into the right areas. And then once we'd got that all done, we actually set up my own car on the days of viewing to actually steward people to the areas like the carousel, to the anyone remembers the Sea Lion show, all the pumping systems for sale. There was different sections, the clown steps, etc. All the bits and bobs, the Falls of Fear and the water rides and all the rest of it, that was all being sold, whether for scrap or not. There were all areas that were out of bounds for people to walk through. And I always remember we had one chap come on there. He got really uppity. He come on with a drone and started flying his drone to do footage and all the rest of it. And I was the one that actually caught up with him and kicked him off the site and said, "Look, you can't do this, mate. You know, you're not allowed in this area." and he then went on to leave us like a really scathing review, didn't he? Which is still available to read on Facebook to this day, saying that, oh, I got chucked off by some security guard, I wasn't very happy, just because I had dreadlocks and that. Well, anything to do with that. You was in a restricted area that there was no insurance in that area to have people there. That was the only reason we did it, and we did it to a lot of people as well. You wasn't allowed into those areas. So what else did we do? We had to decide what was going to sell. We did all that. We got the auction ready, the advertising, the media, Natasha, the press. The Grimsby Evening Telegraph, of course, as well played a major part. You know, the Evening Telegraph. I can't lie, they annoyed me quite a bit at the start because they ran a story on Pleasure Island from our Facebook page. They literally just read what we put on Facebook and the pictures and all the rest of it, and then took the pictures off there and put them in the paper and all the rest of it. And I rang them up and said, look, you know, I'm not being funny, but Prestige Auctions is, you know, like 2 blocks away from your offices here. Just come and talk to us. You know, we'll give you whatever access you want. And then from that point on there, we struck up a rapport with the Grimsby Telegraph, and we gave them access all the time. And to be fair to the Grimsby Telegraph, they actually did a fantastic job of covering the story from start to finish. And then along with you know, there was Lara King at BBC Radio on the side, Compass FM got involved, Lynx FM got involved, Viking Radio came down, and all the rest of it. So that was it up to that point there. So what I'm going to do there, before we start, for this one here, because we're only going to make these an hour long, we're going to do it over 2 parts. We're up to the point now, pretty much, where we've just done viewing, we've had all the people coming, and I'm going to stop there. And next talk we'll do the auction itself. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it. I'm going to open it up to you, to any questions that you want to ask, up to where we're up to. I mean, we have already got some questions in. So, Robert Waller, I'm actually going to answer your question, but obviously it's not to do with Pleasure Island. But when you said to us, what restrictions do Liquidators put on auctioneers regards reserve? Well, when you do liquidation sales, which we have done 1 or 2 as well already at Prestige, is that they pretty much leave it to you. What you do find with liquidators is they want to get as much value as possible, and they are actually legally bound to get as much value as possible out of an item. For instance, it's not right or legal even these days for them to give you a £10,000 ring and allow you to sell it at £100. That wouldn't happen. And they've got to prove through evidence that they did everything possible in terms of advertising, etc., to get that the highest price they could. Because if not, they could be counter-sued back the other way through not getting the most for the money. But of course, people all know that when stuff goes to auction, it usually sells, you know, a little bit lower than what it should do if you were selling it privately. And that's sometimes the beauty of auction. You haven't got the hassle. You're passing that hassle on to somebody else, of course, which we charge you a commission for. So why did so Alfie Lugston? Right, let me talk to. I'm just going to talk to you very quickly about Alfie. Right, Alfie got in touch with us very early on when we was doing the Pleasure Island sale, and Tom and the girls and all the rest of it down at the park had told us about Alfie, and Alfie, you know, loved going to Pleasure Island. He was a Pleasure Island nut, and he absolutely loves the place. And Alfie wanted to come down and do and have chats with me. He rang me a couple of times, and I gave him as much time as I could. And then I agreed to do a video with him for his site. We walked around Shrieksville and all the rest of it. And Alfie absolutely adores Pleasure Island. Still does to this day. Runs the Pleasure Island archive now. I think from what I've just seen on his Facebook, I think he's just finished school this year. But he's actually set up this fantastic little Pleasure Island archive of lots and lots of Pleasure Island stuff, and he's trying to keep the memory alive, and he does a fantastic job. Go and look at his website, okay? His new website's out there at the moment. I had a look on it. My picture's on there as well, so I was quite pleased to see that. And he's just putting something on my site on here now. He's putting, I'm going to be making a documentary on the auctions after all the coronavirus is over. Fantastic. Yeah, we've already agreed to do something with you, Alfie, anyway. So Alfie sent me some questions this week. But why did the park pull out of the Shrieksville sale in the second auction? Now, we're probably not going to talk too much about the second auction because it was all about the first auction, to be honest. Even though there was Pleasure Island 2, which was just sort of mopping up. But yeah, the park did pull out of. The park decided that they wanted to sell. Shrieksville didn't sell in the first auction. It had, I think, it had about an 80,000 reserve, was it, something like that, in the first auction, and it didn't sell. Much more to the pity, but there was a lot of interest in it. But you know, it was a bit of a mammoth task. It was almost like Tink's, the Tinkerboo Town ride. It was sort of purpose built at the site, so it was always going to be quite difficult to uplift and move somewhere else. And of course, the Shrieksville ride, which ended up being a ghost train ride, used to be, was it like a jungle adventure ride, something like that? Because there weren't really ghost train cars that was on it, they were like jeeps. And anyway, maybe you can tell me all that, I'm sure Alfie will. So they decided in the second auction that maybe they should split it up and sell all the animatronics, because the animatronics are quite sophisticated in these places, all computerised and that. So when your car goes past, the thing shoots out, whether it be the man jumping out at you or the ghosts and all the rest of it. And at the very last minute, the park decided, I think the park just got a little bit nervous. Well, what happens if we only sell 4 pieces? And then we're left with a ride that we can't sell because we've bust up the animatronics and all the rest of it. So the reason they got nervous about it, basically, was that they wanted to know that it was going to sell the whole ride. So even though they decided it was quite a good idea to sell it individually, then they changed their mind. And that literally happened a day or two before.
It was 2 days.
It was 2 days before the second auction, wasn't it? Yeah. Did we find anything, there's another one from Alfie, did we find anything in the park that they thought had been destroyed or lost? It was quite interesting because when we started digging into old storerooms and things like that, because they pretty much gave us open up access all areas, go where you want, you just tell us, we'll unlock it. And we went and we found a lot of interesting stuff in the Tinkerboo storerooms next to the Tinkerboo ride, and in storerooms at the back of Tinkstown as well. Old signage. We found one of the early park signs, the big one, the big metal sign. That was found in there. They didn't even realise it was there. There was lots of things that they actually found in these areas that they weren't aware of. And there was always quite a surprise, especially Tom. Tom was a great guy, and he would say to us, "What? That'll sell, really?" It's like, "Absolutely, this will sell all day long. People will love this sort of thing." So there, we did find lots of interesting things. And then, what was your favourite moment of time spent at the park? Not quite sure, Alfie, whether you mean as a tourist, because we used to take our own kids down to Pleasure Island when they were younger, or when we did the auction. I presume you mean as the auction. I don't know. I think my favourite bit of the auction.
I know what my bit was.
Okay, what was your bit?
When it was over.
So, I think my favourite bit of the auction was the talking to the people that came in and were asking so many questions and were so excited about it. We were excited about it as a business, but lots of people were excited about it, that the fact they had a chance to buy things from the park and all the rest of it, you know. And I remember a disabled lad coming on the park, and he'd come with his mum, and his mum was so excited about just being there almost one more time. And we pulled some stuff out of boxes for him and gave him some merchandise and all the rest of it, and he was absolutely over the moon. And you know, and it was little things like that that kind of stuck out, that when we decided that Pleasure Island was something that could be sold to the people, we proved it, how much it meant to the people of the town and that loved Pleasure Island. So it was just moments like that that were really good to us. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the questions we're getting. Did all the rides sell except the carousel? That's from Kevin Turnbull. Well, yeah. Shrieksville didn't. Shrieksville and the carousel were the only two that didn't sell. Of course, you know, when we do the second part of this, which will probably be next Wednesday, if we're still in lockdown, which I think we will be. The carousel did sell. You know, there is, in actual legal terms, it sold, didn't it? somebody entered into a legally binding contract. But we're going to talk about that next week. So because there's so much to tell about that. There was so much happened with that. So what else would Lois there has put? What was your favourite part of the whole experience? I don't know.
I know mine.
What?
When it was over again.
It was a lot of work for the team. The whole team put so much work into Pleasure Island, and you know, and it put us on the map. So what else? Anthony Barker's watching. Old friend of mine. Hi Anthony, hope you're okay. Keeping safe. Alfie Lugston, Shrieksville is supposedly still in the park, which is a real shame. I don't know anything about that. When we finished the Pleasure Island 2 sale, that was it. We walked away at that point, and we didn't have anything else to do with anything. I mean, I don't know what's happening to the park. I know they I assume that McCormack's would have been open now at Easter time, but obviously with the lockdown and that, it's not happening. So Sarah Louise Williams has just put in there, do you know anyone selling a toffee head? So there you go, I'm putting it out to all you Pleasure Island fans out there. Do you know anybody that's selling a toffee head? I'm pretty sure that Alfie sold one not that long back, but I'm pretty sure he won't be selling any more. We never realised just how much them toffee heads were going to be sought after and how much they was going to make. You know, I mean, it was quite interesting that lots of people wanted a toffee head. I always wanted the one out of the licorice bit of the ride. It was the first time I went to Pleasure Island. When I went round that Tinkerbell ride and I got that smell of licorice, I thought it was fantastic. What's this one then? Did we get anything from the auction? Did we buy anything ourselves? Yeah, we did. We bought all sorts of stuff. We got caught up in it just as much as everybody else. I know, for instance, my son Daniel, he bought a pink marshmallow, or was it Magic Mushrooms box or something? Or something, was it something like that? Was it pink?
It's pink.
Yeah, out of the Tinkerbell ride. We bought the Gobstoppers sign, which is still up in Prestige Auctions, Orwell Street.
Our other son, Stephen, he bought you a carousel picture.
Yeah, and Stephen bought me... Stephen and Lois bought me the carousel picture, which is through there.
Yeah.
So, and which was the original... So, just so you know that, Alfie, I've got the original artist impression carousel picture as well. So... but that's not something I'm going to let go of. So what else have we got on here? Let's just have a quick look. Now, of course, one of the other things that we did buy as well was we bought a lot of merchandise. We bought quite a bit of it, and I've still got quite a bit of it as well. So what we're going to do next Wednesday as well is we're going to do some giveaways as well from Prestige Auctions. We're going to give away some merchandise as well. So if you tune in to next Wednesday's one, while we're talking about the auction and that, we'll devise a way of doing some giveaways. I think I've still got some caps, I've still got some fleeces, I've still got coats. In fact, I've got one of the raincoats as well, which is still all tagged up and everything. Of course, we've got lots of pens and stuff like that still. So if anybody wants any of that, we'll work out a way that we can do something for that next week. So what else have we got here? I'm going to let's see what else anyone else put. So as I can remember seeing, I'm looking at the auction. Yeah, so what we need to do is get your questions into us, okay? So what we're going to do from next week's chat, we're up to the point now where we got to the auction, and when we're going to talk about some of the things that went wrong. Okay, and one of the things that went wrong, and a lot of people will remember this, was we had some serious internet problems on the first morning of the sale. We actually crashed out the servers pretty much at bid on this. We had so much interest. There was all sorts that went wrong on that first morning. We had to pause the auction and get the tech guys in and all the rest of it. All things that we didn't sort of envisage would happen, but did. So we're going to be talking about that next week. We're going to be talking about the things that sold, what made the most money, and then obviously the interesting bit about and then obviously the bit about the carousel. We're going to touch on that, and then we're going to touch upon a lot what happened behind the scenes after the carousel saga. lots of stuff happened in there behind the scenes, including national papers and media and
Lisa pulling her hair out.
yeah, BBC Radio 2 and journalists, and it was you wouldn't believe how crazy it was for them couple of days after the auction, and the press releases we had to do, and the legal jargon, and because we had to line everything up. There's so much more that happened behind the scenes after the auction. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how long the auction went on for, and what we sold, and the wobbly mirrors, and all the stuff that went on late, and there was so much that happened. So what else we got here? Lois has just put, how many hours sleep did you get the night before the auction? Not many. It was rather nerve-wracking. Bruce Jarvis, hi from London. Hi Bruce, how are you doing?
Is it Sainsbury's?
Are you not at Sainsbury's today then? Oh no, it's not Saturday, is it? Hey, you actually come up there as a top fan, Bruce. That's quite good. Peter Dalton, too many people using mobile phones to watch online. Okay, not quite sure what that means. But there you go. So we're gonna call it a night there, I think, because there's not really many more questions coming through. We're gonna carry this on next Wednesday. We're gonna pick it up. We're gonna pick up the story of Pleasure Island from the auction days, and some of the problems we came up against. I mean, the biggest nightmare. I'll tell you about this one just very quickly. The biggest nightmare that happened was when I went up onto the rostrum for the first time and looked down the room. The back of the room was really dark, and I couldn't see people bidding. So then I had my mother-in-law and father-in-law up there as spotters, and if you actually see them on the BBC One show, you actually see them stood up there, and we had the people there from bid on this as well. There was Josh Sam, Josh and Sam, they were fantastic helps as well. So all this to come next Wednesday. So if you've got any questions about anything that happened in the auction, then do talk to us. Good evening, Mr. O'Rourke. You just got up? I see you've just come on there. So there you go. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I just hope you're all still safe and enjoying the nice weather and staying indoors, or in your back garden at least. And listen, we want to get the auction room back up and running as soon as possible, but that's a Saturday thing to talk about. So we'll see you on Saturday for the normal check-in chat from Prestige, and
check-in chat.
Yeah, it's the check-in chat. Make sure everyone's okay. We might even get Lisa on the camera. You never know. I might just turn it round at her now as I go and switch it off.
You will not.
As she sat there in a dressing gown. Anyway, take it easy, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be talking more Pleasure Island next Wednesday.